not here. All right, well, thank you all so much for taking some time to come. I am really, really excited about ECD 310. It's our Exceptional Learning and Inclusion course. And this is one of two courses in the College of Ed in the undergrad program that's consolidated or that's being shared across a bunch of different undergrad programs. And it's really exciting because we have the chance to work with students from so many different programs. And not only do we as instructors get to see different perspectives, but it's also going to let our students see different perspectives as well. Because as you know, working with diverse learners applies to all different ages and groups of working with people in education. But
it came with the WAP, so you haven't even played the WAP?
You guys, can you make sure you guys are on mute? Thank you. So it's nice because if, let's say, you know, I teach in the early childhood department, so my students who are early childhood students will get the chance to interact and work with students in maybe in the education studies program, which will give them a different perspective too, and everybody can, you know, see different ideas and share different ideas from each other, which is going to be great. So some of you might be wondering, you know, why are we having a combined course? Why did Ashford make the decision to combine a course together and to have students from different programs take the same course? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, we were looking for opportunities to reduce directed studies courses, and some of you might not be familiar with directed studies. Our directed studies courses are courses that have under 10 students in them, so they're a smaller class size, and the university was looking for ways to reduce that, to give students a better experience. Because if you've ever taught a class that has 3 or 4 students in it, it's really challenging to get engaging and meaningful conversations and discussions happening in the forums. So we found that if we have students that have a little, you know, a few more, or courses that have a few more students in them, then everybody gets a better learning experience. There's more interaction from peers to peers. The instructors get to bring in various perspectives. So that was one of the reasons. And then when we took a look at all of our courses, we realized that within the undergrad programs in the College of Ed, that were a lot of similarities with EDU 382 and ESE 315, and then this new course, ECD 310, which was being developed for one of our new bachelor programs. And so we thought, well, why are we going to run so many courses that have similar outcomes? Let's put those courses together, which will help reduce directed studies, but will also give our students the opportunity to work with students from different programs and get different diverse perspectives and backgrounds. And then it gives everybody the opportunity to collaborate a little bit more, not only for our students in the program, but it also gave the opportunity for faculty members within the College of Ed to collaborate with each other, which helped everybody to kind of know each other's programs better and to see some of the common threads that might be running through the different programs in the College of Ed. So that brings us to, how did we design this course? How did we come up with this course? Well, one of the first things that we did was we looked at all of the different program learning outcomes for the 8 undergrad programs that are involved in, or that have students that are taking ECD 310. And then we worked with all of the different program chairs. So we connected with each of the program chairs of these 8 undergrad programs and looked for areas of opportunity, places that were similar in our PLOs or what we needed our students to get out of this course, places that were different, and how we could come to a common ground and how we could make sure that the course learning outcomes for this course met the needs of the students from all 8 undergraduate programs that were going to be taking the course. And it was a really great collaborative effort among many departments. Kalani was really helpful. He brought in a lot of the perspective for EDU 382 because he's been the course lead for that course. And so he and I worked together and went back and forth and, you know, looked at course learning outcomes, and we sent our charts out to all the different program chairs, and we used color coding to make sure that the voice of all the program chairs were heard and represented. And we're really excited about what came out of this and how our course is really comprehensive, but then also has opportunities to differentiate and meet the needs of students in each individual program as well. And if I'm going too fast or you guys have questions, feel free to stop me and let me know. So you might wonder, well, how are our students going to benefit from this? You know, we have 8 different programs. All of their programs have different learning outcomes. Can all of these students really take one course and get what they need? And the answer is yes. And one of the big powerful ways, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is just through the conversations that our students are going to have. So imagine that you're having a conversation about collaboration. That's one of the themes in this course, is how to collaborate. And you normally work with English language learners, but then you get to hear what an early childhood educator does to communicate. You might find an idea or strategy that they use to communicate that then the students in the ELL program wouldn't have heard of if they were just, you know, only grouped with ELL students. So it really gives our students the chance to have conversations and talk with each other and get new ideas. It also gives them a broader view of situations before entering the working world. Again, depending on your program of study, the scenarios and things that you've come across might be different. So you'll get to see kind of the big broad picture of education rather than just your individual silo of the area of focus that you're looking at. You'll get to learn about different fields. You'll get to see the chance to relate it to different opportunities throughout the world. And I think the last one's really powerful, is the opportunity to network, that you will get the chance to connect with not only as faculty members, students through other programs, but the students will get the chance to connect with each other in other programs as well. So I keep mentioning that there are 8 different degree programs that will take this course, and these are the 8 programs. Our Child Development Program, Cognitive Studies, Bachelor of Arts in Early Childhood Development with Differentiated Instruction, or that we affectionately refer to it as EDI because the title is super long, and that's one of our new undergrad education programs. And then the Bachelor of Arts in Early Childhood Education, as well as Early Childhood Education Administration, the Bachelor of Arts in Education Studies, the English Language Learner Studies program, and then also our Bachelor of Arts in Library Science and Media. So you can see a diverse group of programs within the College of Education, but they all, whether in all of these programs, all of our students will have the chance to work with students who have diverse needs and, you know, to build and create inclusive environments. So we were able to weave all of the unique needs of these programs into this course. So it's hard for me sometimes to see the arrows on the bottom of my slide to move it over because the white bottom in the border matches the arrows, so I can't find them all the time. So this course was designed for students to really walk away with a solid understanding of exceptional learning and inclusion. We start the course by laying the foundation of, you know, what is the history of inclusion? How did inclusion come to be what it is today? And then students will use that foundation and that knowledge of what inclusion is and what differentiated instruction is. And they first look at collaboration, because as you know, in order to create inclusive environments, in order to meet the needs of diverse learners, you have to be able to collaborate. So we take a really in-depth look at collaboration. Our students have to do a self-reflection on how they collaborate, and they have to look at what collaboration looks like in different situations as well. And then once they have that foundation of what inclusion is and how to collaborate, then we start to look at evidence-based strategies. Well, how can we apply these strategies using collaboration and using what we know about inclusion to help students be successful? And then that's how the course kind of ends, is with students being able to apply the information that they've learned to a variety of different case studies. And throughout the whole process, as they're working on all of these different ideas in each week, the course culminates with students walking away with their philosophy of inclusion. And it's great because they get the chance to develop what is their philosophy of exceptional learning and inclusion. What does that look like for you in your environment? If you're a library science major, how are you going to create an inclusive library setting for your patrons? If you teach in early childhood, how are you going to create an inclusive learning center? If you work in cognitive studies, how might you be inclusive of adult learners? So even though there are diverse needs for each of the programs, everyone will walk away with their solid philosophy of inclusion. Any questions so far? All right. So these are the 4 outcomes for the course, the 4 big takeaways that we want our students to have. 1, we want them to be able to examine historical approaches for inclusion and their influence on current trends for learning environments for children with exceptionalities. So that's that big idea that we talked about at the beginning of the course, where we really lay the foundation for what is exceptional learning and inclusion. Then we look at evidence-based instructional methods and strategies. That's our second big takeaway. We want our students to know what exceptional learning and inclusion is, but we also want them to walk away with evidence-based instructional strategies that they can use across a variety of different settings to support students' needs. We also look at collaborative models in inclusive settings and how you can use collaboration to help support children and their families. And then finally, like we said, the big takeaway at the end is that everyone will walk away with a professional and ethical-based philosophy for working with children with exceptionalities. So to do this, every single week we kind of have a big area of focus and a theme to help us get to the end goal of our students knowing, well, what does exceptional learning and inclusion mean to me? How will I bring that to life for the students that I work with? So we start with understanding exceptional learning and inclusion. Then we move into collaboration. From there, we look at evidence-based strategies. Then they get a chance to apply their knowledge. And finally, they look at some ethical dilemmas. So they really have to reflect on how they would bring their philosophy to life. And throughout the course, we purposely made sure that we included some specific structures that continue each week. So one of the things that we did is for all of our discussions and all of our assignments, they're structured the same way. They all start with an introductory paragraph to help build some background knowledge. And then they have a section that says to prepare for this discussion. And within the prepare for this discussion, there's it always reminds them to go back and look at the guidance, because we know that the guidance is there, and we know that the guidance has great ideas and tips and resources, and I see KK shaking her head. But we also know that our students don't always look at it, or it kind of slips out of their mind. So we always put a reminder in there. And then we always remind them again, you know, which textbook chapters they are going to want to refer to, so that they know exactly where to find the information that they might need to complete a discussion or an assignment right within their discussion. And then if there are any additional articles or videos, or this course has several interactives, we have those linked as well, right in that discussion section, or to prepare section. So this is there, whether it's an assignment or a discussion or a journal, it's there for students to use and see. So yeah, Jen, you're welcome to borrow and steal that idea. And then right after that, it will say either in your post or in your assignment or in your journal, and then we bullet out specifically what is the content information that needs to be included. So we tried to make it really clean and clear and crisp for the students so that they didn't have to go searching around. You know, they always get that, the resources for the week, it always, you know, has that tab within Canvas, but then you have to toggle back and forth, back to the resource, back to the discussion, back to the resource. So by structuring it this way, it kind of eliminates some of that toggle, and they can get right what they need right here within the course. With the exception of textbook chapters, they would have to go to their Constellation bookshelf to get it, but any articles or videos are right there for them. So, and as I mentioned, there are several different interactives that we've built into this course to really try and get our students engaged and excited about the content that they're learning. And so this was just one example, but in week 2, the big focus, the big theme for the week is collaboration. So we actually had a hangman interactive built around some of the big ideas of collaboration. So there's some big takeaways that we want them to walk away with when they, you know, to be able to define collaboration. What does collaboration mean? How do you collaborate in different ways? And so to really reinforce that and drive those ideas home, we worked with our ed tech team and our ID team and had some interactives created. So there's different fun ways for them to engage and practice in the activities. And these are built right into that preparation section. So if it's something that we've, you know, worked on and we want them to do, we've stuck it right there. So it's right there in their face, and they don't have to go search for it somewhere else. So I'm sure you guys might even have fun exploring some of the interactives as you get a chance to go in the course. They're a lot of fun, especially the hangman one. It's tricky. You have to remember all those letters that you use. So, and then one of the other things that we did, and after we go through the PowerPoint, I can pull up and show you in the course as well. But we know that we had common themes running through this course, right? So again, if we use the example of collaboration, no matter what your degree program is, no matter in what capacity you're working with children, whether they're 3-year-olds or they're 17-year-olds, communication is going to play a role in what you do. So we have some common pieces, but then we did have opportunities in places where we could differentiate for our students. So you can see, this is just a quick screenshot. And again, I can show you the course after. But we have a discussion that talks about, this particular discussion is about, has to do with when they're working on their philosophy of exceptional learning and inclusion. And so in the assignment directions, there are bullets that are consistent that all of the students are going to include and incorporate in their philosophy. But then at the end, there's a final bullet where there's a specific piece of their philosophy that we want them to apply based on their degree program. So as you can see, if they were in the Bachelor of Arts in Education Studies, the particular piece that they would include that's related to their program is they would talk about how they would incorporate their philosophy into the curriculum that they use. But if you were a student in the Library Science and Media program, then you would talk about how you would use a media tool to help share your philosophy of exceptional learning and inclusion. So there's common pieces, but then there are pieces that are differentiated. And in the rubrics, we have built in, if it's a piece that's differentiated by program, in the rubric, one of the criteria just talks about, did they include their program specific component? So it's not a different rubric for every assignment. They will all have all the discussions and all the assignments use the same rubric. But if there's a piece of the discussion or the assignment that's specific to the program, there will be a criteria in the rubric that just talks about if they incorporated the program specific component. So that was how we were able to have commonality among discussions and assignments, but then also integrate opportunities for things to be differentiated where it was appropriate. One other thing that we did for all of the written assignments in this course is we worked with our Writing Center team, who are just fabulous. And they helped us to create templates and samples for our students that are annotated. So as you can see from what's on the screen, they went through with our writing prompts. And I know, Debbie, the Writing Center is so awesome. They went through with our prompts and they helped to, write out they did both for us. We have sample assignments, but then we also have templates. So our students know what the final product should look like, but then they also have a guide, because you guys might have experienced, I know I experienced it in several of my classes, sometimes the hardest thing for our students is simply figuring out how to set up and structure their paper. And what we really want to know is what their knowledge is. Yes, the formatting and all of that is important, but the bigger takeaway for me is, do they understand the content? Can they demonstrate their knowledge of the content? So if we eliminate some of the stress and the worry about how do I format this and how do I set it up and give them that template, then they can go in and plug in their information. But what they've done in these annotated samples, you can see from the blue arrows that they put hints and tips. And so this arrow that's down on the bottom where it says, I gotta move my video so I can read it. Discuss the specific type of position you would like to have. They take the bullets straight from the discussions or straight from the assignments, and they put them in those tip categories so that our students can make the connection between, oh, okay, this piece of the assignment is what they're talking about with this bullet in the assignment directions. And so we really tried to help and guide our students to be successful in sharing with us what they know, rather than having them get hung up on how do I present the information, but giving them the format to do it. So there are samples and templates there's a written assignment in week 2, 3, and 5, and they all have samples and templates, which is really great and awesome. And then the other piece that we've integrated into this course, and some of you may be familiar with it and some of you might not be, is there is an e-portfolio component. And more programs at Ashford are starting to integrate Portfolium into their courses. And Portfolium is just an e-portfolio platform that's been adapted and being used at Ashford, where students can, link and connect coursework to demonstrate their knowledge, so that when they leave or graduate, they have an online electronic portfolio that they can take and show potential employers of, look, here's what I know. Here's my philosophy of exceptional learning and inclusion. And so in the summative assignment, and again, I can show you when we can pop in the course when I'm done with the presentation, there is a link with directions right within their summative assignment, in that to prepare for this assignment section, that says to students, if you have not already created a Portfolium account, here's the directions on how to do it. Because some students, depending on their program of study, may already be familiar with Portfolium and other students may not. And then what they do is they submit their assignment to Portfolium, but they also still submit it to the course through Waypoint. So they submit it in 2 places. And what it asks them to do in the directions is it asks them at the beginning of their assignment, so their final assignment is their philosophy, it's a Word document. It asks them to include the link to their Portfolium at the top, So then you as the instructor can see and click on that link to see if they really did submit it or not. So it asks them to submit it to Portfolio and give you the link, and then then their paper comes after it. So when they submit it to Waypoint, it will have their Portfolio link in it. And then on the grading rubric for the summative, there is a 1-point criteria. It's either a yes or a no. Yes, they did submit it to Portfolio, or no, they did not. So that's how we're holding our students accountable. It's either yes, they did, or no, they didn't. It just comes in with the Waypoint rubric. It's the final criteria right before you get to the, did they use APA format? Was it the correct number of pages? There's just a criteria that the assignment was or was not submitted to Portfolio. And so there's a tip sheet in there for students on how to do it. If you have students who have questions about it, you can always reach out and ask me and let me know, and I can help, guide you through how to help them with it. But all you're going to check for is whether they did submit it. You're not actually grading it within Portfolio. You would grade it in Waypoint like you usually do, because our Waypoint rubrics help to give us assessment data so that we know how our students are performing on different course learning outcomes and program learning outcomes. So it will get graded within Waypoint, but they will submit it to Portfolio as well. Any questions about that? Okay. So our summative assignment for this course is for our students to create a philosophy of exceptional learning and inclusion. And we actually have our students in this course, they start working on it in week 2. Because as you know, your philosophy is something that even now in your career continues to evolve and change. But our students' philosophy is going to evolve and change even in the 5 weeks of this course, because they're going to start with the, their foundational knowledge that they have in the beginning about the history of inclusion and the important role that collaboration plays. But then as the course continues, they're going to learn about different strategies and have the chance to practice some of those strategies with scenarios in their discussions and assignments in weeks 3, 4, and 5. And so we know that by the time they get to week 5, their philosophy is going to be even stronger. So in week 2, they begin their philosophy, and then in week 5 is when they culminate it. And the nice thing is that they get the opportunity to not only grow in their knowledge, but because we have them started in week 2, they get some feedback from you as the instructor on their week 2 assignment to help them kind of guide, inform, and continue to process through their philosophy. And then they can incorporate that feedback before they have their final philosophy in week 5. And you'll see, I'm going to show you an example here. In their philosophy, they kind of work on it throughout the course, even though they don't realize it. So it's scaffolded for their success. So for example, one of the things that they incorporate into their philosophy is their intended career path, because we want their philosophy to be meaningful to them and purposeful. So we want them to connect it to what they intend to do when they graduate. So one of the things that it asks them to do in week 5 is to revise their explanation of their intended career path. So they've already started that and already thought about it earlier in the course, but then in their summative, they're going to come back and revise it. And then we also highlight things, if something like this second example where it says new, it's a completely new piece of their philosophy that they didn't work on in week 2, but it always has a connection back to something that they've already kind of talked about and worked on in the course. So you can see the last sentence that's highlighted where it says refer back to your week 3 discussions, evidence-based strategies, and universal design for learning for support. So the actual synthesis of the information for the philosophy is new, but they have the knowledge from prior weeks in the course, and then we always give them a reminder so that they know where to go back to. Okay, oh, I want to look back at this discussion. I want to reflect on what I wrote here. And the really nice thing is that if they get to go back and use previous work, their knowledge has grown from their conversations with their peers, from the feedback they have from you, and it really gives them the chance to, focus on what they believe about exceptional learning and inclusion. So the whole summative is scaffolded. You'll see that it's either, a revise from something they've previously done, or it's a new component, but they have prior knowledge from other activities they've done in the course. Any questions about the summative? So here's just a quick overview of each week so you can kind of see what's coming. In the first week of the course, they have their introduction, like you do in every course, so everybody can get to know each other. And then the first discussion talks about the history of inclusion. So kind of how did we get to where we are today with inclusion? And then it also helps them, there's a second discussion where they really help to define what inclusion is. So that's kind of the big idea of week 1. What is inclusion and how did we get to where we are today with inclusive environments? And they get the chance to begin to look at inclusion based on their career path. Because again, we want this course to be meaningful and relevant. The big ideas relate to everyone, but we want them to see how it connects personally to what they plan to do. And then they also have a journal in this week about professional dispositions. But the really neat thing is we worked with the program chairs, and for each of the programs, there's a different set of professional dispositions, because the dispositions for an early childhood educator are different than for English language learner students, or different for students who are in cognitive studies. So each of the program chairs helped us to locate a really solid resource for their program about professional dispositions. And in the journal directions, and I'll show you guys in a minute, there's just a link. So there's a table and it lists the programs, and then next to their program is the link for the resource that they would use so that it's relevant to their program. So the questions and the reflection in the journal is the same, but they're going to do it from the lens of their profession. In week 2, it's all about collaboration and communication. So the first discussion talks about what collaboration is, because collaboration really is so much deeper than meeting with people and having a conversation. So we really help our students to walk away with a solid understanding of what collaboration is. And then the second discussion is probably one of my favorite pieces of the course. They actually have to complete a self-assessment on their communication styles and reflect on it. And it's really powerful because it helps the students to see what type of a communicator they are, how do they receive feedback, and then how they are going to use that to help communicate and work with children and families to create inclusive environments. So it's a really fun self-assessment. You guys might enjoy taking it too. I know I took it before we put it in the course to make sure that it was easy to understand, and it was a lot of fun. And then for their assignment, they are going to start their philosophy of exceptional learning and inclusion. And there's a sample and a template for it. And then they're going to go and revise and add to it in week 5, but they start it in week 2. And there is a differentiated component to it. So the first couple of bullets of content criteria are the same for students, but then the last bullet, and I'll show you guys in a minute, the last bullet has something specific based on their degree program to include. In week, oh, here it is. Here's the example. So this you can see, so this is the week 2 assignment. So there's, the initial bullets, the one up here, summarize the role you feel collaboration should play. All of the students are going to do that. But then the last bullet, you can see, it says, include the following based on your program of study. And then there's a table, and it lists each of the 8 degree programs. And so they're going to include whichever the content specific piece is for their program. And again, this grading rubric will be the same no matter what program they're in. There will just be a content criteria on the rubric that just says, did they include the program specific requirements? So you don't have to worry about grading with 8 different rubrics. It's the same rubric. Just that last piece of their paper is going to be different based on their program of study. And then week 3 is about evidence-based strategies. In this particular discussion, they get to choose, which I think is really nice, because depending on their interests and depending on how they plan to work with children or young adults, it would influence the strategy that they might want to know more about. So there's all types of different evidence-based strategies: adaptive technology, scaffolding, RTI, adult learning theories, project-based learning. And what they do in the discussion, I think there's 7 different choices. They all learn about scaffolding, but then they pick in a different evidence-based strategy to compare and contrast with it. So we want to make sure that they all have a solid understanding of scaffolding, but then they get to choose which of the other strategies they want to use with it. Yeah, oh, I know, Jen, I love the Iris Center too. So, and then the second discussion is all about universal design for learning, or UDL. But there's an Iris Center module. If anybody's not familiar with the Iris Center, it's an amazing bank of resources. And they have a module all about UDL that was just fabulous. So we thought, well, let's not reinvent the wheel. So what they do is they actually go through and complete this module in the discussion, and then they do some reflection on it. It's really, really great, and it's accessible, and it's video and closed captioning, and it's fun and engaging. So that's the second discussion, to talk about UDL. And then the assignment this week talks about how to make assessments inclusive and differentiated, because that's a really big piece of instruction. Again, whether you're working with young kids all the way to young adults, assessments are a part of what you do. But we have to think about how do we do assessments in a way that makes sense for all of our students? How can we give assessments to meet all of their needs? How can we differentiate them? How can we make them inclusive? And so the assignment has common threads throughout, and I'll show you those common threads in a minute, but they have different assignments in the sense that they have different scenarios or maybe different resources that they're going to be reading to help them that are based on their program of study, but their overall outcomes and takeaways are going to focus around the same big ideas. And those big ideas are right here. So they all develop a presentation. So you aren't going to have some students doing a presentation, some students doing a paper. They're all going to do their assignment in the same format. They're all going to create a presentation. They are all going to be proposing recommendations for how they would make sure that their learning and assessments are inclusive based on their program of study. So what inclusive assessments are going to look different with 5-year-olds than they might look with 13-year-olds, or they would look different for language learners. Or if you were working in the library, the way that you might assess whether or not your library programs are working are going to look different. So they're going to write about it through the lens of their program of study, but they are all going to be talking about how to make sure that assessments are inclusive. They're all going to include information about how they're going to apply evidence-based strategies. They are all going to examine how they will continually evaluate the process that they use to determine whether or not their assessments are appropriate and inclusive. Everybody's going to have to give a rationale for the choices that they choose to use for assessments, and then they also all will have to talk about how they will use collaboration, the role collaboration will play in assessments. So they will each get, and again, I'll show you when we're done, we'll pop in the course, there's a link for each program to their specific assignment, because they might have a scenario that they're going to use, or they might have a different article that they're going to read, but the criteria of what's going to be in their presentations is all going to be around these big ideas you see on the screen. So that's how they'll have a common rubric. So you will be focusing on these big takeaway outcomes of how to ensure assessments are inclusive, how they'll apply evidence-based strategies, how they'll continually evaluate the processes that they use, their rationale for the choices they've made, and their role of collaboration. Those ideas will be the same. They will just be through the lens of their program of study and what makes sense based on their career path. Any questions about that? You guys are easy. All right. Week 4, there are 2 discussions, and these discussions are where they really get the chance to start to apply some of the strategies that they've learned and talked about. So in the first discussion, they're going to look at how you would support students with specific learning disabilities or speech and language impairments. But again, they're going to get to bring in the lens of their program, because it will look different depending on the age of children you're working with. And then in the second discussion, they're going to look at how to apply strategies for students with ADHD or emotional or behavioral disorders. And there's a really great interactive built into this second discussion that helps students. It's shoot, I'm trying to blank on what it's called at the moment. It's an infographic. It's a really cool infographic but it's one that you scroll down through, and it pops up all kinds of statistics about the numbers of young children, the number of young adults, the prevalence of ADHD and emotional or behavioral disorders, and kind of different definitions and some of the key defining characteristics and features of students who might have ADHD or emotional or behavioral disorders. And so it really helps to kind of help all the students see just how prevalent this is and how relevant it is, no matter whether you're working in a library or working with young adults or working with language learners. It's a really cool infographic. And then they use the information, some of the information from the infographic, but then also information from reading in the text to help them think about, well, which strategies that I've learned about would I want to use or apply to help a student in my particular setting who maybe has ADHD or who maybe has a behavioral disorder. So they really get the chance in week 4 to start digging into how to apply what they've learned. And then there's a reflective journal, and they have a couple of different options for their journal. They can do a video, they can do a PowerPoint, they can write a paper, but to reflect on what they've learned in this course, but then also how what they've learned in this course connects to what they've learned in their program. And then the final week is week 5. And in week 5, they should have one discussion where they get to choose a case study. There's a file folder interactive, and each tab they click on brings up the case study of another child or young adult. And there's various ones, you know, there's young children, there are language learners, there's library patrons, there are ones with 17-year-old students. So the students can really find one that kind of speaks to them or relates to their degree program. And they read the case study, and then they have to identify what is the ethical dilemma in that case study that's related to exceptional learning and inclusion, and how would they work through that ethical dilemma. And then the final piece of the course is they come back to their philosophy of exceptional learning and inclusion that they started in week 2, and they revise what they've already done based off of feedback from their instructor, or maybe ideas and things they've learned from their classmates in the forums. And then there are some new sections to help them solidify what they believe about exceptional learning and inclusion. And then there is, in this one, the last bullet, a piece that's specific to their program. And again, it will just, they'll do everything, all the common bullets, and then that last piece will be specific. And the rubric will have a criteria about, did they include the program specific components. And again, the week 5, the summative, they will also submit to Portfolium, and there's direct links built right in to the assignment for students to be able to do that. So, and this piece of the slide I actually borrowed from my dear friend KK from her presentation that she did for EDU 499, because some of you might be thinking, well, how am I going to teach for 8 different programs? And like she said, you won't. You're facilitating the course. You can kind of see, now that you've seen a breakdown of the weeks, how these topics apply all across the field of education. So you don't have to necessarily be an expert in, you know, every single niche environment, because the ideas are big and broad. And you're going to learn with your students as they're sharing ideas and information about, oh, that might be what it looks like in the library. But there are tons of resources built into the courses. You can reach out to me. I'm the course lead for the course. So if you have questions, you can reach out to me, and we can connect you. If you have a specific program question, we can help connect you with that program chair if there's something that you have a question about or want to know. But its topics are big and broad, and I'm actually really excited to see so many diverse perspectives come across in the forums. I think it will really open our students' eyes, and they will actually be able to make even more inclusive environments for their students, because they will have so many different ideas that they can try and share. And then looking ahead, one of the things that we're working on with the assessment committee at the university is to try to have some opportunities to build in calibration opportunities, and to get instructors who teach the same courses on the same page. You know, okay, how do we all grade the week 2 assignment? You know, what might be distinguished to me might be different than someone else. So one of the things that we hope to do with this course, and that we think will be really powerful, because we have students in this course from 8 different programs, is to have the opportunity to do some calibration meetings or mindset meetings where we get to come together and look at student samples and talk about how we would grade them and why. So that's something that's going to come down the road once the, you know, the course has run several times and we have student work that we can pull and use. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And then we talked about this a little bit at the beginning. The first section of this course is going to start on September 25th, so in just about 4 weeks. And this course will be replacing both ESE 315 and EDU 382, but it won't be a clean break. So it won't be that once the new course starts to run, once ECD 310 starts, ESE 315 and EDU 382 won't go away 100% right away. It will kind of phase out. More students will move to ECD 310, and students will stop in ESE 315 and 382. So it doesn't mean that after September 25th, there won't be any more sections of ESE 315 or EDU 382, if those are the ones you usually teach. They will start to become fewer and fewer until they eventually are done, because it's just a phasing out process. But the new course will start September 25th. And that's all I have. Unless you have other questions, or if you guys want me to pop in and show you what anything in particular looks like within the course, I have the course pulled up and we can pop in and take a peek at that. I am always here if you guys need anything or have questions. I'm going to type my...
Hey, Jen?
Yes.
You think once you teach that first class, yeah. I think you said the 25th, is there a possibility we can get a link to look at how you did it the first time around?
KK, do you, I know as full-time faculty, like we can go in and look master courses. I'm not sure the process for that with associate faculty. Or Allie, do you guys have any insight? I definitely can look into it and, you know, find out. KK?
I was told no. But what I did for my course that's similar to this is I made a cheat sheet for associate faculty that I kind of went through by assignment and put in what's working for us, those of us that have taught it first, and just some little tips and tricks. And I think it's because of the whole FERPA thing that we can't have just that's I'm not sure, that's a big guess on my part, but I was just told no. And if I can just say one more little hint, which is similar between Jen's course and mine, is it took me 2 classes to figure this out. But when you do your export sheet, if you do the Excel grade export sheet, what I did is created another column and put their program of study next to their name also to keep that straight, because I will tell you, every once in a while, you'll find a student that's in ECE but picks the wrong standards and they're doing something from BAID or something else. So just keeping that straight and having a list of it, because it doesn't pop up next to their name. You don't see their name and their program of study, so you have to do that. So that's just a little tip.
That's a great tip, KK. And Jen Robinson made a great comment in the chat that we could do a Zoom meeting to walk through a course to demonstrate what we're doing. I think that's a great idea. And we could use those opportunities. You know, you have to do your hour professional development when you're teaching. So we could do something like that to count towards that hour. Because I can pull up and show you the master shell of the course without students. So we could always walk through and do it that way. I will send out, when we're done, I'll send you a copy of the course guide so that everybody can kind of look and see what it looks like, you know, as a course as a whole, rather than just the broken down weeks. This course is currently using the same textbook that was in ESE 315. So if you've taught ESE 315, that's the textbook that's being used in the course. So if you've already taught that course, you're familiar with it. It's not the same text from EDU 382, but it is the same one from ESE 315. And you know, KK has had the chance for the last like 3 months to work through the combined capstone. So we can certainly reach out and ask her questions. And there might be something that I don't know right away, but I'm happy to work and figure it out. You know, we'll work through it together. I think it's going to be a really great experience for our students. Like anytime we start a new course, there's always a little hiccup here or there, but know that, you know, I'm here and accessible, and you guys can reach out and ask me, and I'll be there to support you. We can, and even if just you or I, if there's just somebody, one of you, you know, you're struggling, we can always hop into a Zoom room together and work through whatever, you know, struggles might be going on.
Hey, Jen, I just want to also mention, we will also have all of the resources for the course in the EDI shell in Canvas. So if you're teaching the course, you will be invited to join a course shell that will have all of the resources, recommendations, webinars, calibration data. And I'm thinking also maybe even for adjunct faculty, especially a list of all of the programs in a short description, so they can just have that all in mind as they're grading.
That's a great idea, Holly. Thank you.
Jen, let me say something real quick. Since my class has gone off before, and I've seen a lot of the stuff that's Jen's saying, you know, that really cool interaction and different programs learning from different programs. But my course is more about the next steps of the professionalism and beyond. But I see this as far more valuable than the capstone as these students working together. Because, you know, when you were saying silos, and I was just thinking, you know, this whole course is inclusion, and here we are in all these little separate silos, so we're not even including each other. So this is going to be fabulous. I'm excited for this.
Yeah.
You've done a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really, really excited. For a lot of reasons, I'm excited for this course. We've been working on this course for quite a while, so I'm excited. It's always fun to see a project you've been working on come to life, but I'm really excited for our students too, because I do think they're gonna walk away with so much from having the chance to work with so many different people.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, I can hang around. Does anybody want me to pop in and show you what some of these pieces look like in the course? Or if anybody's done and you're ready to hop off, that's okay too.
Can I interrupt one last time? Sue,
can
where
always
do I know
interrupt.
you from? Sue, did you teach in Escondido?
I did. What at Del Dios?
Oh my God.
Wait, it
How do I
gets
know
better.
you?
This whole time I've been staring at you. I was texting a friend from Poway going, where do I know her
I was
from?
from
She's
Poway,
like,
too.
"No, Poway."
What did you were you in Poway?
I taught in Poway also, yes.
Where did you teach in Poway?
Valley and Creekside. But I taught at Del Dios.
Oh, well, wait, what did you teach?
Okay, first of all, let's just point up to that sweet little girl at the top, that sweet little picture there. See Jen Czar? Jen Czar was a student at Del Dios when I taught at Del Dios.
Wait,
Yep.
what year?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's see. I was at Del
1991.
Dios probably like, gosh, you guys are all gonna know how old I am now. 98,
93 to 98.
Yeah,
So you came right when I was leaving. I went to Poway. I was only in Escondido for 2 years at Del Dios. Then I moved to Poway at Mount Carmel.
Okay.
That's
I always tell KK that Mr. Wagner was my favorite. He was the best math teacher on the planet, and he was my favorite.
Yep.
Yep.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
KK always gave me a hard time about it. She was teaching a teacher while I was at Del Dios.
So fun.
Hi, Jen Robinson.
Saying that you knew me. That was nice.
Oh,
Wait, what did you
that's
teach,
wonderful.
Kathleen?
Pardon?
What did you teach at Del Dios?
At Del Dios, I was jack of all trades, master of none. Do you remember the superintendent, the one that ran off with our assistant principal or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a story for you. I won the New Teacher of the Year award, and that's exactly what he said. Is Kathleen Kelly, master of all trades? What was it? Jack of all trades, but master of none. And I'm like, oh, thank you.
That's awesome.
I taught English and math. I brought Avid with Lori Livesey.
Yes, Lori. I remember.
Yes,
Gosh.
yeah. And ESL.
Yep.
Yeah, I taught just about everything. Yeah.
I totally remember now. You're